I think,
Yay!
let's see. I want to make sure it's coming up. Okay, little thing said as soon as I hit the button, that is why. So let's say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello. Check. Do you see it on your page? Hope you do.
I am checking.
Okay, great. All right. Hey, everybody. I am CieraAdair.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
And this is the lovely
Beatriz Mieses. It's so nice to connect with everybody via Facebook and to be next to this goddess, even if it's just digitally.
Oh gosh. Okay, so we were thinking in our little brains here, like how can we, like what are some conversations that we can start to have with you guys? And one of the things we thought of was the concept of hunger and wanting something. And yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. I think first things first, I just want to thank you guys for coming in here. And if you're catching on the replay, you're in for a treat. I can't wait for you to see the whole video. Please let us know what you think or any thoughts that you have, even if you're watching this later on today. We care. Okay, so I think we should just start with a definition. What is hunger? What is desire? What is this phenomenon?
Well, I think everybody knows the basic definition of hunger. You know, when you need food and you're feeling a little weak or a little cranky because you need to put something in your body. Right. So I think that's the most basic definition. And I apologize for the noise in my end. It's 7 p.m. So people go all out here thanking the health workers.
Right.
But another way to define hunger could be to talk about, when we have a desire for something, a need for something. I will describe hunger more like a need, than desire.
Okay, I like that. I love the concept of hunger because it is so internal, it is so primal, it is so it's something that you're not really all that in control of. And I think that sometimes when we have impulses, when we have an innate want for something, it can be a little challenging to know how to navigate that. And so when it comes for something like food, right? We know how to handle if we're hungry. You put something, you go to the fridge or you go to the carry out, you get something to eat, you put it in your mouth, you chew and you swallow. Like, it's pretty simple, right? But what happens when it conflicts with what you should be eating? And also on an emotional level, what happens when you have a craving for something, but you don't even know what you're even supposed to do about it? So let's talk about the first one, kind of being on the subject of like food, right? Let's say, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's sometimes, I think that one of the biggest challenges is that sometimes we're not fully connected to our hunger. Through different influences, sometimes we are externally focused and we guide what we do based on external reactions or external information. So sometimes you may feel like you need something like food, but not know what to eat because you have been so conditioned to make your choices based on things that are external to you. Whether that's reactions from people around you, some diet that you're following, or influences in the media, things like that.
Makes sense. Um, so when it comes to that disconnect, you know, when it's like you want something and you can't have it, or you want something and you should probably have something better. Like what? Like let's get into that. Like what's happening there?
Well, that's a lot of the work that I do with embodiment. Is about reconnecting with the body and learning how to engage in conversation with the body so that you're able to truly satisfy your body's needs. So basically, like the first step is deconstruct any kind of information you have received about what you should be doing, and getting to know what works for you and what feels good in your body. And that's something that doesn't happen overnight. If you're very disconnected from your body, it may take you months or even years to really learn what you're hungry for. Like last night, I think it was because I did weight training and my muscles were very hungry. And I told my husband, oh, sweetie, I need to eat some protein. And I need 3 ounces. I usually like serve myself 3 ounces of protein because I am in a weight loss journey. And last night, I'm like, I'm not doing 3 ounces. I need a big chunk of meat. My body is hungry for meat.
And let me ask you, what made you like? What was that sensation? What was that thing that let you know? Okay, I have a need, but what is it? Like, how did you know that you wanted more protein, or that you wanted something else?
When I checked in with my body, all the images that were coming in my head were like a big piece of chicken or a big piece of fish or a big piece of steak. That's all I was thinking about. You know, like sometimes you want carbs and you really think about, oh my God, a piece of bread right now will be amazing. So what all the messages, all the signs that were like flashing in my head were some type of protein. So I made a salad. I made some hard-boiled eggs, and I put some feta cheese, and then I had some ground meat, and I put that on top. So I like stuffed it with protein as much as I could.
And how did it feel as you were consuming that?
Amazing. And it feels even better. It felt better in the morning because
Really?
I had a very good night's sleep and my body recovered from what I did yesterday. That was the food I needed to recover from my day.
So how do you think your body would have reacted if you were like, no, I'm supposed to eat just a regular salad with like maybe an apple or something? Like, how do you think that your body would have
I would
reacted
have woken up hungry and tired.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask that is because so often, kind of coming from the idea of like food, right? Because that's like the easiest way we can access that phenomenon, that idea of hunger, right? But coming from that to that, like other cravings, whether it be emotional, whether it be physical, as far as like affection, sex, moving, like relocating. When it goes to
Career change.
right, like yeah, career change, when it comes to just the being generally unsatisfied and thinking about, well, first of all, realizing you're unsatisfied, realizing that there is a need, um, and going for that. So like I said, the reason I brought the food part up and how you felt after you took care of that need was because I wanted to explore kind of what happens when you have an emotional need and you either don't know it, you're ashamed of it, or you actively choose not to go, actively choose not to solve it. Or when you choose to solve it, but in kind of an erratic kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And there's also the tricky part when it comes to hunger too. Sometimes there are things that appear that we're hungry for something, and it may be, how do I phrase this? Sometimes we have the need for things that are created by our trauma, our history, our pain, that is not authentic hunger. I don't know if I'm making sense. So it's important to get to know your hunger, but also identify when it's a real hunger. Right. Like sometimes I want to do things and I want to do them immediately to deal with anxiety, but it's not a real grounded desire, you know, a real grounded hunger. It's more like I just need to appease this anxiety that I'm having right now.
That's a really interesting point. Sometimes knowing the source of the need will help you identify what is a need and like what is a genuine need and what is like a trauma response, what is a learned response, what is a kind of like your body scrambling.
Phrase, learned response, yeah.
Right, and I think there's a big difference when it comes to that. How would you, how personally would you identify that difference? So like, let's say if for example, you know, we were at work and, you know, something happens on the job and the first thing you think, I gotta quit my job, you know? It like, do you think that's like a genuine need? Do you think that's like just like a reaction? And at that, like, how do you think that would be navigated?
I think for me, it all depends of, you know, the context. If that's a reaction that has been preceded to many different, you know, instances that have shown you that that's not the right job, it will be different if it's just like a spontaneous reaction. And like you said, just getting to know yourself and knowing what your patterns are and what your triggers are. You know, if anytime you deal with confrontation, you just want to run, you know, fight, flight, or freeze. So if every time there's a confrontation, you just want to fly, you just want to run away, and you're self-aware, then it is easier to say, oh, I'm just having my flight reaction. Let me cool off. How will you respond to that? What will you say about you know, that same scenario that you just provided?
I was having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about gut feelings, and we were talking about what's the difference between a gut feeling, like your intuition, and anxiety, right? And it was kind of a general consensus that it's kind of where you feel it and how quickly that feeling pops up. So let's say if that were a situation I was in, I would probably consider that like a trauma response, because I know for me, you know, a lot of situations I have been trained to like get out of there. Or I've been trained to kind of like block it off and like emotionally distance myself. So, and I know that about myself. So I already know when that pops up, it's more than likely a reaction. And then that usually like kind of fades a little bit. Now I know if something happens and then there's like a gut, like I literally feel it in my gut and, you know, in my sacral chakra and in my root chakra, it's like, girl, it's time to go.
and I love that you're mentioning that. And, you know, everybody's different, but I am very connected to my gut. And I have learned that my yes and my no reside in my gut. And I think I mentioned when you know, in one of our conversations, I mentioned that to you, that when something is really horrible, it's really easy to know that that's a no. But sometimes there are very subtle no's that I am a recovering codependent. I would say I'm almost recovered by now. And I can't believe how many times in my life I muted that subtle no. It's like a tiny little tingle, like, you know, between your chest and your stomach that says, no, you really don't want to do that. So The body tells you, and that's what embodiment is all about. The body tells you when something is coming from your intuition, from your inner wisdom, or something is is reaction from your ego, or from external influences, or from your history and your trauma.
How about you guys in the chat? And if some of you guys are watching, feel free to jump in and out with any of your experiences. I definitely want to know, well, one, where are you watching from? And two, what are some ways that you can tell the difference between when something's a need and when something's just a reaction? Yeah, we'd love to hear your stories and your perspectives, as this is a big old conversation. But yeah, so moving on from the idea of how to identify the difference, right, between a trauma response or like a reaction to a need, right? And getting into the concept of need. I would love to take a moment and think about our reaction in society, or our societal sort of perspective on the concept of need and concept of want, and always, in my experience, I've always encountered this calling to ignore, to suppress, to act as though need does not exist. That I can exist in a vacuum on my own. And if I'm craving something that I don't need it, the only thing that I need is what I currently have. Like, there's this weird sort of independence that I've witnessed being pushed on people, to where if you were to say something like, I need it, it's negative. It's almost like this idea, like, you're out of control. So yeah, what do you think about that? Or what's your perspective on that?
I think I, as you were speaking, I was thinking about a couple of things. When I think of need, I think, like the way I was brought up, I think about very basic things, food and shelter. And then anything outside of that is not a need, it's like extra. So if you have food and if you have a roof over your head, you're set. That's it. Everything else, if you want a new pair of pants, or if you want a new car, or anything else that you may want is extra and is unimportant. I think that was the way I was brought up. So that's, how I was contextualizing what you were saying.
Yeah. And I think I noticed, growing up, not necessarily poor, not necessarily rich, not necessarily anything in particular, but there were certain things that was like, okay, as long as you got food, shelter, water, you're good. And just like you said, other than that, like, you don't need that game, you don't need that thing. And it's like the word scarcity comes to mind.
Yeah, greedy. If you want anything more, if your basic needs are met and you want anything more, you're greedy.
And I also remember as a kid the fact that the word want, the difference between the word want and the difference between the word need, like the difference between those two things were so deeply ingrained in me that if I was like, Mom, I need this, like, she'd be like, do you need it or do you want it? But if I said want, then that means it's like, it's unimportant. If I say need, then it's like, okay, I'll take care of it. But then at the same time, I'm taught that to need something is to be dependent on it. To be dependent on it is to be weak. So I mentioned that because, I feel like our society, at least at our socioeconomic level of society, we do not pay attention to our needs. We almost demonize them. We try and distance them. We try to minimize it, to the point where we don't really know when we're hungry. We don't really know, like even physically. There are some times where I'll ask somebody, hey, you hungry? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Do you want to eat or not? Oh, I could eat. And I'm like, when was the last time you ate? Oh, God, they can't think, like they can't. And so it's like, how do you know what is going on? Or I would ask somebody, okay, well, what do you want? Like if they're like, oh, I hate my job, I hate my husband, I hate this, and I'm okay, well, what do you want? They're like,
Oh.
huh? What do you mean?
I don't want this, but I don't know what I want.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, granted, kind of knowing what you don't want is a great place to start. Not necessarily saying that you want something opposite, but just saying that, okay, at least this isn't it. So yeah, I just wanted to make a point while we were here that just want everyone to know, like, it's okay to feel and to, to feel like you're missing something that isn't a basic, survival need. Like it's okay to feel as though this isn't enough. And it doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't make you insatiable, which is a weird word to begin with, but and it doesn't make you greedy or anything like that. It just means that, hey, I want something else, and that's okay.
And
and
that's
it's
why
probably,
I'm sorry, I finish your thought.
no, go for it.
I was just gonna say that's our internal compass, letting us know like it's time for a shift. It's
Yes.
time for something more. Sometimes, like you said, we experience this as knowing that what we have is not what we want, but we haven't connected with ourselves enough to know what the alternative is. But it's our internal compass that it's constantly telling us, you need to go a little bit this way, not that way, up, down. And I think for me, something that was really challenging, I have had a very hard time changing my mind. There's nothing that I would have been afraid of the most than being considered flaky. Like I'm the oldest child, so I'm supposed to be the stable, grounded, mature, the one that knows what to do. And there's been instances in my life that I thought, maybe I'll go in that path. And then when I get there, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I have continued doing something. And like I said, my history, I'm not saying that's the case now. But I have continued in a path, just afraid of being judged as being flaky. And I think that now that I'm more connected to my true hunger and my yes and my no, I am way more comfortable changing my mind and allowing myself to be self-guided.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, so I'm the baby of the family.
There you go. You people. Yeah, youngest of how many?
Of three. Of three. And like one thing I definitely noticed from the oldest of my family was that this need to be consistent. And how that need may have stunted the pivot, the concept of the pivot. And I know for me, I think because I kind of like was always into something anyway, and I was always kind of seen as like that baby that's always into something, it's like it was almost like, oh yeah, there goes Ciera, always into something else. But at the same time, I do have this slight overachiever / perfectionist thing that I'm working through. And that will definitely have me like my insides is just like, okay, time for the next thing. And I'm like, wait, no, you need to stick with this until it's completed. And I'm like, no. So I think there definitely is a level of guilt, a level of self-judgment that is in the pivot going from something that you thought you wanted into what it actually is. And I think there's also a fear that you're going the wrong way when you try and chase your desires as well.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to look crazy, you know? No one wants to look stupid.
Yeah, especially when what you want is not the next logical thing. They've been jobs that, you know, there may be a promotional opportunity or something. And I know I should probably, you know, the external world is telling me you should go for that next thing, but I know in my heart that that's not what I want.
Right.
So when you pass an opportunity to make more money, to get more fame, to get more accolades, to be more successful, people look at you like, like I have a cousin. Hopefully she's watching. She's a nurse.
Hi,
and when I was still in that mindset, she told me like she was always troubleshooting for her boss, and that they had asked her to be the head nurse which in the medical facility where she works. And I'm like, oh, of course you have to go for that. You have to go for the next logical step. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. You're doing the work already. And she's like, sort of, but I don't want the responsibility. I like to be able to, you know, take off my scrubs and go home and not worry about things. If I give any extra information or support in another way, it's voluntary. I don't have to do it. And that didn't make sense to me. How can you pass the opportunity for a promotion when they want to give it to you? But now, you know, I understand and respect when people know themselves well enough to make the choices that are right for them. So she didn't have the hunger for being the big boss in that environment.
Yeah, and it's just like when you're literally hungry and people hate this sometimes with me, but they'll be like, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, I don't know. And then they're like, well, let's go to here. And I'm like, I don't want to go there. It's like, at least I know what I don't want. I know I want something, but I don't know what I want. It's not that though. And that's, like I said, that's just as important in your journey, knowing what you don't want, even if it's just like, okay, but Ciera, you don't know what you do want, so just pick something. I'm like, no, that won't do. You have to keep suggesting things, but I don't know. But that happens. And yeah, I think not only living in a capitalistic society, but also living in also, you know, that scarcity idea, that thinking that, okay, I should take the most logical thing because who knows when I'm going to find that thing that I want? Who knows when that next thing is going to come around? Who knows how long that thing is going to keep me satisfied for? And then comes the sacrifice, where you're like, okay, this is the logical thing. This is the thing that's going to keep me afloat. I'm going to give up this desire. I'm going to give it up. I'm going to say no to myself, and I'm going to go for something else. And just like you said, if you would have taken that other meal, you would have woken up just as hungry.
Cranky.
That's what something, yeah, cranky.
Cranky and tired.
Unfulfilled. And which kind of brings us to that next point, like what does suppressed desire turn into? What does like a dream deferred, like what happens there? One of the things that we were looking at was, you know, the concept of deprivation, self-deprivation, self-betrayal. It is an act of self-betrayal. It can lead to, you know, depression. It can lead to physical pain. It can lead to compulsion. It's almost like your internal self is like, why is she not listening to me? Is she crazy?
It leads to resentment. too, because then when you see people around you that are meeting their needs, that are satisfying their hunger, you get really angry and hateful. Like, you know, going back to the example of food, I want cheesecake, but I'm on a diet. I'm doing paleo right now. I'm not gonna eat carbs. And then you see the person next to you enjoying a piece of cheesecake. You just want to kill them. So, you know, when you deprive yourself, it makes you resentful. It makes you angry. It makes you depressed. It's like you feel, even your creativity gets unplugged. Like you just stop. Sometimes you lose your appetite altogether and become apathetic.
Yeah. And you also lose connection, because once you start telling yourself no, later on down the line, you're training yourself to stop listening to that sense of what you want. We have a question. It says, hi, hey, Emily. How are you? It says, what are some tools to be less self-depreciating? So we're so glad you asked that. So first and foremost, tuning into yourself, tuning in, knowing what it is that you want, knowing what it is that you feel, and also taking inventory on how your actions and how your thoughts make you feel. I like bringing this up, especially when, like, in class or something, someone would say something negative about themselves, or the way that they were performing, or the way that they looked, or the way something was fitting. And I'm like, how does that feel when you say that? Does that make you feel good? Okay. Go up to that mirror and say, yes, bitch. And then you tell me how that feels. And so I think I say all that to say, I think the first thing is knowing what feels good and what doesn't feel good. Self-depreciation, self-neglect, it is actually going to hurt you probably more than anybody else can. You're going to feel it deeper because, you know, it's you. You know, it's the ultimate betrayal. So you're going to feel it a lot deeper. So you will definitely be aware of how it feels. And then after that, once you already know what things make you feel good, what things make you feel bad, what things are self-betrayal, what things, you know, being able to identify all of that, then you start to look at what the alternative is. You start going towards the things that make you feel good and veer away from the things that make you feel bad. And I know that sounds very like elementary, but it's really not, because sometimes just going on that journey of knowing is it's a roller coaster, because you really start to unpack. You start to see, like, it's almost like this world opens up, your eyes open for the first time, and you really see what you've been doing to yourself. You see what you've been saying to yourself consciously and subconsciously, and yeah, you start to see that effect, and it's not always easy to look at, but yeah, you definitely want to identify what side everything is in, even if you have to write it down. Like, you know, when I say I look like this, I feel like this. When I say I look like that, I feel like that. Or when I say, hey, you know what, I don't need to, you know, have my favorite treat because I've been being bad and I didn't work out, so I'm gonna punish myself. Like that's not motivational. That's not good for you. And you'll know automatically in your body's kind of like, like, if you can imagine your inner child being like, fine, okay, they'd probably be hurt. So yeah, identifying, correcting, and indulging to an extent, because we are going to talk about overindulgence.
Yeah, well, that's the other side of the pendulum. But adding to what you said, it's also, after you know what you want, trusting yourself. I think the challenge is that we don't trust that we want the right things. We don't trust our judgment. We don't, you know, especially as women, we have had our judgment questioned so many times. So we have been told what a good girl is supposed to be, what a woman is supposed to be, what the right way to be is. That when we desire something, we, you know, juxtapose that against what we have learned, and we don't trust our judgment. And I think that when we trust our judgment, like we're gonna talk about compulsion, we don't go too far. And we can go deeper into that later. But I think since we're already foreshadowing compulsion, we can delve into that. And that's definitely my territory. I have a book idea, so I'm gonna say it. Don't steal it. Don't write the book with my title. And my book idea is Greedy Fat Slut. Because those are the things that I have heard in my head when slut, you know, when I wanted sex and I wanted fun and creative sex, that it wasn't just for procreation. When I wanted food and I wanted decadent, delicious food, and when I wanted more from my creative life, from my professional life, greedy. And most of my life, I can say honestly, it has really just changed in the last couple of years. I have not trusted my hunger. So I have gone from deprivation, like not trusting myself and not doing things, to the other side. When I finally cave into the desire or craving, I just go crazy. Like, okay, this is the last time I'm gonna have all this food in front of me, so I have to, you know, eat it all. This is the last time a guy is gonna come on to me, so I need to have sex with him even if I don't like him. This is like the promotional opportunity. How can I pass on it? I need to take this job even if the idea of it makes me crazy. So I have very compulsive times that have been very, very unhealthy in my life, where I have overindulged in things because of my scarcity mentality, because it's a reaction to a bounce back from deprivation. And because I don't trust my own, the same way I didn't trust my subtle yes and no in the top of my stomach, I did not trust when I felt satisfied. I needed to go further just to have a little extra, just in case I felt deprived later.
Yep. This is just the same as if we're eating something and we're like, okay, I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I don't know the next time I'm gonna have this cheesecake. God, no, I want cheesecake right now.
We keep talking about cheesecake.
The fact that I don't trust that I will have access. Trust that these opportunities will come again. Trusting in the universe as much as I'm trusting in myself. Whew, that will lead to not, that on one end can lead to self-deprivation and self-betrayal, but it can also lead to that overindulgence, that giving yourself so much that now you kind of, I don't want to say ruined your appetite, but yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you gave yourself a tummy ache.
Yeah.
Whether, and you know, we keep literally talking about food, but also another thing that adds to compulsiveness is the feeling of not being enough and deserving. Like, I don't deserve good work opportunities, so I need to grab whatever comes my way. I don't deserve a good man or a good lover, a good partner, so I need to take whatever I can get. I don't deserve to eat what I want in a way that's satisfying. So I just, if you put food in front of me, I just have to eat everything that's in front of me, because I experienced the same thing with alcohol. You know, I would not drink, but then when I went out, if I had one, I had 20. I couldn't have one. I'm a binge drinker. So now I don't drink at all, but it was something that I couldn't have a glass of wine. If I had one, I had 20. So it was sort of that situation with a lot of things in my life that either nothing or everything, or I felt non-deserving. Like right now, I mentioned to you, talking about food again, that I'm in a weight loss journey. I learned after my last physical that my blood sugar was a little high. And between that physical and the previous one, the only difference was that I had gained a little bit of weight.
Okay.
And so I decided, because I'm in this embodiment journey and I'm letting my body take the lead, I'm like, well, my body's telling me something. And I was pretty anti-diet and everything like that. And I didn't want to, I actually, it took me a few months to come out as being in a weight loss process.
I remember that when you
yeah. Yeah, I remember when you told me, say, you look, and I'm like, yeah, it's intentional. I'm doing it for real. And I'll be honest with you, I am having the most luxurious time with food. I am not experiencing 1 ounce of deprivation. I am eating everything I want. I'm eating until I'm satisfied and I'm stopping, and the weight is melting off. And I never thought that it was possible. And now I'm learning that my point of satisfaction is way lower than what I thought before.
Now, what was it like? I mean, if you remember, like while you were training that response, when you were like, okay, I've had enough, but then that plate is still staring at you. Like, what is that like?
It takes a little learning, because you habitually, you used to like filling up a huge plate of food and putting it in front of you and eating until you finish everything in your plate, because that's what mom taught us. So it takes a little bit of time. And to be honest, sometimes I need to stop and give myself a little bit of time for satiety to kick in. I literally am one of those people that takes the 20 minutes to feel full after I stop eating.
Yeah.
So I serve myself a smaller portion. If in 20 minutes I'm still hungry, then I'll go for more. But I'm giving myself that gap of time. And sometimes the 20 minutes kick in and I actually feel way fuller than I expected. Because I do need that little bit of time. But I'm having a blast. I'm eating everything that I want. Like I told you, like I wanted protein yesterday. I needed me all kinds of protein. And I am not feeling deprived at all. And I never thought that it would be possible to lose weight and be able to eat everything you want. And I am having my cake and eating it too. Literally.
Listen, as long as you're having your cake.
Or cheesecake.
Cheesecake, right? So one of the things that stood out to me was this idea of combining that ping, that idea that like, hey, like when you trust your body enough to know its needs, you'll also be able to trust your body enough to know when to stop too. And that's what just dawned on me, is that, like, for example, let's say, when it comes to like love languages, right? And I can be, like my love language is touch, it's words of affirmation, right? So I know the difference between like I know when my body's like, okay, you could need a little, like you could use a little attention. And for those who know me, y'all know I'm very unapologetic about my needs. I feel no kind of way when people are like, she needs attention, and I'm like, duh, we all do. Or she needs approval. Duh, most of us do. Now, right, exactly. Like, you guys can lie all you want, but I'll be the one then. Sometimes it's like, yes, I ultimately trust myself, but sometimes you just need a little bit of backup for stuff. So it's not all the time, but sometimes I'll be like, sometimes I need a little cosign. But anyway, so when it comes to support, when it comes to attention, when it comes to people tending to you, sometimes I need that. But I also know when to be like, okay, you know what? I don't like how this feels. that's not it. So like, for example, if I want to be tended to, and I call my mom, and like, I'm just like, hey, you know, I'm not really doing this well. This is what happened. And my mom, she's the type, she likes to problem solve, right? And I know when I'm like, you know what, actually, don't really need any solutions. Just wanted you to tell me that it was messed up that they said that. You know what I mean? Or that you know, I'm better than that, or you know, something like that. So it's like sometimes knowing when, not feeling like, okay, I already shouldn't be asking for attention. I already shouldn't be asking to be tended to or to be paid attention to. So I'm just gonna take what I can get and not communicate that I actually want something different. That's that scarcity again. You know, that's you kind of trying to salvage an unpleasant situation, or you just even feeling ungrateful, you know what I mean? So anyway, I bring that up because just like we were talking about, knowing when to stop, also that discernment between what it actually is that you want, and not being afraid to communicate or pivot when, you know, as you're searching for it. So that thing ain't always going to be the first thing. You know, you're not always going to order the first thing you see on the menu. Okay, like you're not always going to like the first job that you see on Indeed. You're not always going to like the first place you even interview for. And that scarcity mindset kind of attacks you every step of the way if you let it. And then when it comes to that overindulgence part, when that could be described as when you're just like, you know what, I don't know what I want, so I want it all.
I can't afford to say no.
Yeah, exactly. I can't afford to say no, and I also can't afford to choose for myself. I can't afford to narrow it down because I could be wrong.
And I wanna, you know, we've been talking about food, we've been talking about affection, we hinted at sexuality a little bit, but I want to go deeper into sexuality because I feel this is a place where hunger and changing your mind and knowing when you had enough is really, really tricky. Yeah. And the issue of consent. Consent is not a black and white issue. Consent is very challenging because sometimes we as women don't even know if we haven't connected ourselves, trusted our hunger, and trusted our desires. We don't know if we're doing something that we want to do or don't want to do. Like if you're dating, you are, you know, you're goal oriented, you're dating with a purpose, you want to find your spouse, your forever partner. And sometimes, you know, I've been in situations, I have a lot of friends that have been in situations where they go out on a date and they like the person enough, but then when things get intimate, maybe they just wanted to have a nice makeout session for a little bit. But then, you know, that sense of obligation that, okay, if I don't go all the way with this person, then there's not going to be a second date. There's not going to be a third date. It's not going to go anywhere. The fear of making the other person feel rejected, the fear of having let them on. So that's a really tricky place. You may want somebody, you may like somebody, you may want to have a 20-minute makeout session, but you may not want to have sex with that person that night. Or you probably thought, you know, that you wanted to have sex, and then something happened and you don't want to anymore. And pivoting when it comes to that kind of interaction, to be like, you know what, change my mind. That's an area where it's really hard, especially you know, when we are dating with intention. We don't want to reject somebody and lose the opportunity because maybe that's the one that's gonna put a ring on it.
We get so afraid of messing it up, you know, especially when it comes to our desires, when it involves other people. See, when it comes to us, you know, if we were like using toys or anything like that, you know, we don't feel any kind of way because we're just like, we'll just turn it off and put it in the drawer. Like no one cares. It doesn't have feelings. But when it comes to another person, then you start thinking about their desires. And then you start to prioritize theirs over yours. When you haven't even taken the time to identify and to tend to your own, you're already trying to figure out what does this other person want and how can I make them happy. Again, the ultimate self-betrayal. Trying to make everybody else happy, trying to make sure everybody's okay with you. That's one of the things. I have like cat hair all over my face right now. I don't know why. But
they gave you some affection before the video.
She's saying she is in her room getting her life with this. Yes, definitely let us know if you have had any experiences where this, you know, that this is ringing a bell for. But yeah, so, you know, and see, as a matter of fact, that just happened, right? So my need to like clear my face was combating with my desire to look put together and to look professional. And I'm like, okay, but Ciera, you're suffering right now because this thing is bothering you. And, you know, but it's like, but instead I'm thinking about how am I being perceived if I keep wiping my face? Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like this is something especially women deal with, always trying to make sure everyone is comfortable around them, make sure everyone is taken care of, making sure everybody feels comfortable bringing their needs to you so that you can take care of it. Because we're all, you know, we tend to be caregivers, right? And we often feel as though I am like, it's almost like you're kind of selling the other people short. This is the part that we don't think about.
Thank you.
We're kind of telling ourselves that person can't take care of me. That person can't respect me. They're not smart enough to take my need and to act on it. They're not responsible.
I'm not important enough for them to take my needs seriously.
Yes, and also there's a fear. There's fear there as well. Especially when you come from a place where maybe your needs weren't important to somebody. Maybe somebody used your needs against you, you know, and so that's another part of it where we may start to feel like, okay, I really can't trust my needs with another person. And then that goes right back to the beginning of feeling like I don't need anything. I only need myself. I don't even want to ask. I don't want to reach for anything. Everything that like all of that is a trauma response. So
when I met you, it was very interesting. I think somebody posted one of your classes on Facebook, and I think that person didn't go to the class, but I ended up going to the class. I had a hunger for movement, and I wanted to dance, and your class was really appealing to me. And around that same time, I felt that hunger healed through the body. And that's when I started learning about somatic therapy. Mm-hmm. And when I went to my therapist, the first thing I said to her is I wanted to learn how to connect to my true yes and my true no. Because mm-hmm. I was feeling very resentful. I was having a lot of communication issues with my husband. And I didn't think, I was resentful, but I was not telling him what I wanted. I wanted him to figure it out and take care of me. But I didn't want to tell him what my desires were and the things that I wanted to change about that the things that I wanted to change in our relationship, because I was afraid that if I verbalized my desires, he was gonna leave me. And it took me working with my therapist to get the courage to actually assert myself and set boundaries. And I'm gonna tell you something. My relationship today is as close to perfect as it can be. And I have increasingly set more boundaries and asserted myself more. Even last Friday when you had your Zoom, we were getting home late and I said, I'm gonna go shower. Can you get dinner ready? In the past, I would have tried to do both, shower and get dinner ready, but not as, I'm like, I have my Zoom in 15 minutes. I need to get ready. And the more I have asserted myself, the more I respect myself, the more I prioritize myself, the more he loves me. He gives it back to me exactly this in the same ratio. If I love myself a little bit more, he shows me that he loves me a little bit more. And it's like, the more I elevate myself, the more I trust myself, the more I get back from him. So I know that it's not always that way. If a person doesn't move with you in that way, it's because probably that's not the right person for you. So you should never be afraid of asserting yourself or of expressing what your needs are, of sharing your desires and your hunger, because it's gonna do two things. It's either gonna elevate your relationship with that other person, or it's gonna get that person out of your life, which may be what you need anyway. Like I have released a lot of friendships.
And see, and I also want to make that point that sometimes people kind of shy away from that point because it's they think as though we're saying that, well, if that person can't take care of you, then they're a shitty person. It's like, no. It's just that they may not be able to. And the last thing you want to do is, try and, be like, okay, well, they can't help me there. Let me figure out another way. Like sometimes it's just not worth it to do that. So that person can be a beautiful, wonderful, awesome, crazy awesome person, but they just might not fit in with your puzzle piece, and that's literally it. Just the same though, you might not be able to fill somebody else's need, right? I had a friend, I love her dearly, but there were just I think it was like an issue of like time. And I think at that point in time of my life, like I was just doing so much, I could not physically spend as much time with her as she needed. And I respect that. I was like, after a couple times I had to kind of be like, hey, you know what? You clearly have a need. I clearly can't fill it. So what does this mean? Like, I'm not gonna ask you to reduce your need, but I also cannot give you more. So where does that leave us? And that pretty much just led to a parting of ways. And it's not it doesn't mean that she's a bad person, I'm a bad person. It just means that the puzzle pieces didn't fit together. But see, what could have happened was that either A, she would have been like, okay, I actually don't need to, spend as much time with you, and then she would have suffered. Or I could have been like, okay, yeah, let me just move this around in my schedule, and I would have been all flustered, and I would have been irritated, and I would have resented her every time when we're just supposed to be, hanging out and just, being friends. So, it's important to have grace in these situations when it comes to when your needs are intersecting another person. And when I say grace, I'm not necessarily saying be nice or make room. I'm talking about the ease in which you are allowing that information to pass through your actions and to inform your actions. The least amount of resistance, the path of least resistance in that. So I know for me, I can be extremely accommodating, but at my own detriment.
Yeah.
So that's why, I try my best to make sure that I am being fair to myself and that person, because I also know I actually really quickly can turn that accommodation to resentment if my boundaries are being pushed. It's just me, and that's me knowing myself. Now other people, they can make accommodations, and it doesn't really affect them in certain ways, and there's a lot of accommodations that don't affect me either, but certain ones they will. And I know that that self-betrayal, it manifests, in me just kind of, my body will start to reject that person. I'll see a call come through and I'm like, ugh, right? Rather than being like, oh, they're calling, right? It's like your body will tell you. And that's why it's so important to embody your emotions, your feelings, your wants, embodying that desire itself, because that desire takes on a life of its own.
And the desire, sometimes maybe you want to have time alone, this and that, but it goes back again to scarcity mentality. Like sometimes you don't want to lose a friend because you don't know if you're going to make a friend again, but just trusting that, sometimes things are seasonal and relationships come and go, and the same way you attracted that friend at one point, you will attract somebody else that's more of a match to where you are in this specific moment in time. And I think that takes us into, what does it look like? We've been already hinting at it, but what does it look like to satisfy our needs in a healthy way? We've already been touching upon that, but we can go deeper into that.
So yeah, that was actually like the place I was about to go with that too. See how we're in sync. So that word there, priority. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make that a big thing there. Prioritizing yourself, your needs. First of all, making it a respected part of you, elevating it to be a respected part of you. Just as important as shelter, water, when you prioritize, then you know that, okay, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. Like it becomes a part of your daily routine. Checking in. And also kind of like releasing any boundaries that you have towards it. Any boundaries that you have, maybe not boundaries might not be the word.
Barriers,
resistance, releasing those things, all of this stuff that kind of goes into the little bag that you got to carry around when you're trying to figure out how can I satisfy my need in a healthy way. But also, just like we were thinking about earlier, that idea of knowing when you've had enough, knowing when that need has been satisfied. So you've gone.
I'm sorry, just trusting yourself. Your body's going to tell you when you're hungry, when you need something, right? Your body, your soul, your internal compass is going to tell you when it's time to pivot and move to the next job, when it's time to eat, and when you had enough. If you trust yourself, if you know that your inner wisdom is always right and when it will never misguide you, if you trust yourself, you will never do too much or too little, because you're trusting your guidance.
Yeah. And just to have a focus on the word healthy, right? Mm-hmm. Healthy doesn't necessarily mean that there is a universal standard on what is enough for each thing. Honestly, some people may need to eat more food than somebody else. Some people may just naturally love sex and want to have more sex than other people. Some people want less sex and don't want that as much as others. So it's very important to know what feels good for you. And when you get to the point where it starts to feel forced, when it starts to feel bad, that's when you're crossing into too much. When you start to feel like you're spiraling, when you start to feel you're out of control, then that's something you need to look at. But as long as you're feeling good, your needs are being met, you're checking in with yourself, you're not hurting anyone, and you're not allowing anyone to hurt you, then I'm willing to bet that it's pretty healthy. But once you get into that point where you're starting to harm yourself in any kind of way, that's when it starts to be a little bit less healthy.
Yeah, and we can overdo it with anything. You know, we keep using the example of food, but you can overdo it. I have friends and colleagues that are always exhausted, but they are incapable of working less than 70 hours a week. And for some people, you know, working 70 hours a week, they're in the zone in their creative space and they feel fine. But for some people, that's too much. Yeah. And understanding that healthy, like you said, is not a one size fits all. Like, I am realizing something. I was never athletic. I didn't exercise as a kid. I have really gotten into fitness in the last couple of years. I am learning that I need a lot of movement, especially now during quarantine. I've been getting a little bit over 2 hours of like vigorous exercise, and I feel amazing. My body really, really likes it. Good. So I'm becoming an athlete in my 40s, but I cannot assume that, you know, my husband sometimes does the morning walks with me and things like that, but he doesn't do the level of exercise that I do. I cannot expect anybody else to be like me. This is what my body is hungry for right now. My body wants a lot of movement right now. That may change in a year, that may change in a month, whatever. But right now I'm hungry for a lot of movement, and it feels amazing. And that's my healthy right now.
I'm here for it. And I'm glad that you found that, because, you know, just like we were saying, like sometimes not really knowing that, okay, my body, like I've never really done this before. Do I really want to start now? I think it's been somewhat of the opposite for me. I've always been ripping and running all over the place all the time, doing something, working. If I'm not working this job, I'm working that job. If I'm not working that job, then I'm over here. If I'm not over here, then I'm planning. If I'm not planning, I'm probably knocked out, sleep somewhere. And this COVID has made me very self-aware, kind of mainly because, of course, you know, you want to monitor your own feelings, your own symptoms, your own body. Like, oh, am I feeling nauseous? Did I just cough? What was that? Like, what, you know, what kind of cough was that? Was that a dry cough? Was that a mucus? Like, what kind was that? You know, I was so tuned into my body medically that I'm starting to feel like, dang, Ciera, when was the last time you took a nap? And taking a nap and waking up and feeling great. And I'm like, I should do this more often.
You're in embodiment mode. That's great.
I'm in embodiment mode, and I love it because it's like, this is the most leisurely that I've been my entire life. And knowing like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to my part-time today. Like I'm not going to this today. I'm not going to listen to this today. I'm going to and the idea of choice started coming in my mind, not because, you know, of course, growing up and even being in a capitalistic society, you're always like hustle. You know, I used to be a hustle queen. And of course, you listen to those motivational tapes, you listen to all those things. It's like, if you're not a millionaire right now, then you don't need to go to sleep until you've made $5 billion. Like, what? No, I'm going to take a nap, sir. Okay. It's been very strange sitting down And that's such a weird statement to make, but it's true. It is so weird sitting down and not traveling and not doing all of the time. But yeah, that was kind of my thing to learn, that it is okay to do something a little differently, because I mean, of course, I mean, if you've gone your whole life doing something a certain way, it's not always going to work for you. Your body changes and your needs change as well. That's why it's really important to stay on top of it, because um like for example, for my actual physical hunger, I know when the seasons are changing, because my appetite changes with the seasons. In summer, I basically live off of fruit and veggies, and that's it. I could literally live off of watermelon, but I'm trying to do the whole food groups thing. But yeah, I basically just, all I want is watermelon, and that's basically water and some little substance, you know what I mean? But I also know when the summer's about to be over, because I start looking at that mac and cheese, and I start looking at bread again, and I start looking at all these like heavy carbs.
Heavier.
I also know when I am upset, because I either don't eat or I overeat. Hey Jamal, how you doing? We're talking about like hunger and satiety. My God. I keep having to look up how to pronounce that word. It's a mess. But anyway, yeah, so certain things are going to feel what you call it, are going to kind of change, and that's okay. Like I said, my hunger changes, my desires change, my career paths change all the time. And also, don't feel bad if the people you want to surround yourself with changes as well.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just,
and it's really challenging because like I have a lot of friendships from when I was very a child, and to understand you still want to have certain people in your life, but maybe the frequency in which you interact with some people that changes, because you're craving different kinds of energy, you want different kinds of support, and some of the people that have been part of your history may not be able to provide that for you.
yep. And so at the end of the day, it's you just have to know and be honest. Honest.
And you can satisfy your desires, and you can set the boundaries. You can own your yes and your no, and you don't have to hurt anybody.
Yes.
I think that our internal compass is actually very ethical.
Yes.
You know, when you're self-guided, when you go by your internal intuition, when you're truthful with other people, and you're transparent, you're not going to do anything that hurts you. So you need to trust yourself, but you're not going to do anything that hurts anybody else.
Yeah.
And if somebody is so unhealthy themselves that they have a hard time with your healthy, appropriate boundaries, then that's not the kind of person you need. Somebody is pathologically needy or abusive or narcissistic, they're gonna, they may just walk away from your life because you are respecting and loving and honoring yourself.
One more thing I wanted to throw in there is that it just kind of dawned on me too, is that your needs are just as connected to the universe as anything else. So you may not know it, but your needs and you satisfying your needs might actually be a portion of this universal story that needs to move forward. So even when it comes down to maybe breaking off a friendship or starting a new career path, or even little micro moments like choosing the blueberry muffin over the strawberry, you never know if that person that won the strawberry muffin, like they were running late and they really wanted to pick it up, and like you never know. And so I think sometimes we wonder if our choices are going to like mess up some grand plan, and it's like, no, it's actually a part of it, and you not listening to it is throwing the money, like is throwing the wrench in it.
Yeah, I honestly, and this is what I'm experiencing right now, and I feel very, very certain of this right now in my life.
Mm-hmm.
The quickest way to connect to the divine, to the universe, to the creative force, is to connect to my body and to connect to my gut and my intuition through my gut. It's like the voice of the universe is in your stomach. For those of us that our wisdom talk to us from our stomach, other people may feel it somewhere else. It's that's the divine telling you, no, that's a no. No, that's a yes. No, you should go to the left.
Yep.
Yeah, keep going that way.
It is divine guidance.
Absolutely divine guidance. That is absolutely.
There's this game that I kind of started to modify because I like to take drives into the middle of nowhere because I'm crazy like that. Because I like to spend a lot of time in the woods. And sometimes, just because I'm good at navigation and I can find my way back anyway, I'll just kind of play this game where it's just like, I want to turn left here. I want to turn right here. I want to go down the street. I want to go here. And I'll end up in the most beautiful places. I'll find different things that I never saw before. I found beaches that way. I have found little places that I go that, I consider my sanctuary. Like I find all kinds of things. And I definitely recommend that for anyone who wants to kind of test out their internal compass and their internal decision-making system, just to try that just every once in a while. I mean, even if you have a buddy, you can kind of exchange like, okay, you can make this turn's decision and you can make, the next one. But yeah, as far as that internal guidance, that is something that you definitely need to tune and become very aware of and comfortable with and trust in. Mm-hmm. Because that's what's going to get you through everything. Mm-hmm. And out of stuff too. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I've been into some sticky situations and I listened and something was like, do not go down that street, and I did not. And then come to find out next morning, I find out something crazy happened down there. So your desires and your needs can also be warning signals too. So it's really important to just know what's what.
Yeah, and it sounds narcissistic and it sounds self-centered, but you know what? Yeah, it is. It's self-centered, not narcissistic. We cannot, our decisions will be validated over time, but they may not always be validated immediately. Like with the work that I'm doing with embodiment, I'm coming across so much material that validates my philosophy. And but at the beginning, it was completely intuitive based on my own experiences with my body and my own development and my own healing process. But now I'm finding, tons, you and I have it right here, have talked about the body keeps the score.
Oh,
this validates my entire healing process. I needed to get rid of all my shit from years of pain and trauma and poor choices. I had to go through my body. Until I involved the body in my healing, nothing changed. And when I entered into a partnership with my body, I went through some serious stuff. But after all the explosions, the healing started, and it was, I've never been happier.
Can you hold up the book again?
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I highly recommend this book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. I forget the author's name. I think it's like
it says
Bessel van der Kolk. Yeah. And I can link it in the show notes. But basically, this book takes you through all of the physical ways and the long-lasting effects of trauma and how it shows up in not only your body physically, but also in just the ways you go about things. And everybody has some sort of trauma, even if it's just as small as your parents not being able to meet all of your needs as a baby. So yeah, I highly recommend it. If you're not good with you know, physical books, they got ebooks, and they also have audio books, which is how I had to read it, because I don't do good with regular books. But anyway, so they have in all kinds of formats, and you can find it at a really good price. But
so
yeah,
you will receive the validation for your choices, either because of the way your life unfolds, or because eventually you will come across information that validates what you're saying. But don't be afraid of taking a step because you're waiting for validation or permission first. The only permission you need is that your gut is telling you, girl, do that. That's it. That's all you need. If your internal guidance is telling you to do it or not do it, that's everything you need. The validation will be when you know, took a different turn and found out that the regular turn that you always take, there was a car crash or something happened. That validation will come later, but you don't need to question yourself. You go with your gut.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you said that, because sometimes not all the choices that you make are gonna immediately feel good in your body.
It could be years later, and you're like, oh, that's why I did that.
There was I wrote an article about this a while ago, and even leaving one of my old relationships, I literally, like, I woke up that morning and I was like, I gotta go. I mean, granted, it was definitely like abusive, and I knew I had to leave for a while, but it was something like I came in and I'm like, yeah, no, this is my last time being in here. Let me go ahead and pack my shit and go. And it did not feel good for months.
Because when you let go of something, you're still gonna grieve. Even if the thing was bad for you, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It still hurts.
Yeah, it's gonna, and there's like little pieces that will pop up throughout that healing journey, and you're just like, why? And then a couple months after that, you're like, oh right, that's why. So yeah, I'm really glad that you said that sometimes the validation comes later, but it's always in, you know, like, I have rarely, my intuition, I'm trying to think of a situation where my intuition was wrong, and I can't think of one right now. And I knew at the time, I probably was just like, Ciera, what? But then later I'm just like, yeah, yep.
It's never wrong. Now that's why we have to have a really good communication with ourselves, because sometimes we may feel something and think it's our intuition, and it's ego or baggage or habits or all learned practices. So we really need to work in that in relationship with the self, and fine-tuning our internal, our connection, our communication, because some things may feel really strong and you think it's your intuition and it's not. But once you learn to listen to that voice is never, ever, ever, ever wrong.
One thing I wanted to start to introduce to on this live for the topic is the idea of the clear ask. And I think that it's good not only when you're asking another person, but when you're asking yourself. It's very easy to ignore an unspoken need. Sometimes when you say it literally out loud, even if you're just talking to yourself, which I do advocate for talking to yourself, so clear. When I'm sitting here like, Ciera, you know damn well that you need X, Y, and Z. You need to give yourself X, Y, and Z, and even give yourself a time frame, because like, okay, if you're not ready, then this needs to be done within a month, or this needs to be done by the end of the day. This needs to be done the next time you talk to this person, or the next time you see your boss, next time you see, it's like, when you say it, and then if you want to take a step further, writing it down, but then it's real. Then it's not all up in here where you can just kind of put on your blindfolds and not hear and not pay attention to it. But also, it's something about saying something out loud that keeps you from lying to yourself any further about it. And then it just changes it from hypothetical to okay, this is real. This needs to be tended to. So and then when it comes to other people, they aren't going to read your mind any easier than you can read theirs, or any easier than you can read your own. Because if listen, if we're having this live, because even, you know, all of us have some unpacking and some learning of ourselves and our mental processes and everything to do we really expect other people to be able to do that for us outside of our own heads? No.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. So
like you're saying,
mm-hmm.
I just wanted to mention, you said something, giving yourself a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're new to talking to yourself and new to connecting to your intuition, that you may still not know well when the voice is coming from within or somewhere else, I think giving yourself a little bit of time. If I still feel like this tomorrow, then I'll move ahead. If I still feel like this on Friday, then I'll go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually a really good tool, because I know sometimes even when we were talking about earlier, what's the difference between a trauma response and your needs making themselves known. That can be another indication. It's like, okay, if I still feel like this in a week or a couple of days tomorrow, then maybe I should really start taking this seriously. But see, that comes with you having to be honest with yourself about that. And when the next morning comes and you still feel that kind of way, you can't just be like, well, I'll see if I still feel like it Friday. It's like, you got your answer. Because, you know, if it weren't true, you wouldn't be doing like that anymore. But yeah, so with that ask again, with that acknowledgement again, I like to tell people, if you have a need for someone else, for like a request, then you need to sit down and tell this person, like, hey, listen, you know, I've been thinking, I have identified a need that I would love to request from you, and this is what it is, rather than be like, you never you know, because
you know what I need, just do it.
Right. I don't understand what you do. And I'm very guilty of that. And I can.
We learn when we know better, we do better.
Yeah, when you know better, you do better. But if I had to repeat myself, I'm gonna say it differently the second time. I can't. I just can't help that. But I can. But yeah, when it comes to the expression of the need, when it comes to expression of the request, it's best to use, you know, I statements like, I would love this, and I would love it in this way. Try and be as specific as possible. If you realize that you are, you know, a words of affirmation person, if you receive love in the form of words of affirmation, then you can just be like, hey, I would really love for you to say things like da 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 da. Because see, now you're dealing with other people's you know, cognitive systems. Some people are good at learning from criticism. Most aren't. So when you talk to them, you have to set clear expectations and let them know, like, hey, you're in this position in my life. I would like to see this. You know, and here are some ways that you can start presenting that to me. Do you, and always asking, is that a fair ask? Is that something that you think you can do? And please be honest with me. Because sometimes some people will have to tell you, no, I don't think I can do that. So don't assume that just because you asked something,
it will be
that it'll be taken care of, or that person really understood. You like, definitely open the floor for a discussion where that person can ask questions. You know, don't feel like, you know, questions are offensive, because they may truly not understand, because of course everyone's needs are different. They may actually be like, hey, I don't really understand how this is a need. Or
and they may say, no, I can't meet that need for you, but at least you know, not everybody's going to meet all your needs. And at least you know and you stop expecting it. And then you can figure out, find another way to take care of that need.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when resentment comes, because you were expecting that person to do this for you. And then when they don't do it, you get resentful. But then if you actually have the conversation and they tell you, no, that's not something I can provide, then you know, okay, stop expecting it.
Now, to be fair, there are some needs that only you can take care of for yourself. There are some things that you may have to rely on yourself for. There may be things that your partner or whoever you're asking cannot provide for you, but that does not mean that they aren't right for you. It could just mean that that particular need may have to come from somewhere else. Sometimes there is a little bit of discernment to be made there. You know, so we're not saying, oh, if your person won't write you 100 love letters, then you know, leave them. Now, we're not necessarily saying that. We're just saying that sometimes if you get to the roots, the very, very, very tippity top of the root, and you're like, okay, this is the actual need, because of course needs are kind of like layered, right? Sometimes you need to get to the core, but sometimes there are things that you may ultimately have to provide for yourself, and that's okay too.
Or find somebody else. Like conversations like the one you and I are having right now.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is a very pragmatic, linear thinker.
Mm-hmm.
ABC fast, delving into human behavior, human thought patterns, psychology, sociology is not his thing. So I enjoy those kinds of conversations. That's my world. I love everything about human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not the person to have that chat with me. He's not.
Yeah. But
you can talk about food all night long.
Right.
But no, that. So I find other people like you to meet that need for me.
Yeah, but then you also know because you've identified that, because you've identified, okay, this is the type of person, this is the environment I'm around, but this is the type of person this is. When you have a need that he can fill, you know exactly where you can go to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another reason why it's important to have these conversations, is being able to identify, you know, kind of like have your menu in your head, or like, you know, you already know, like, okay, if I want tacos, I go there. If I want, you know, this food, I go there.
Sushi, you go there.
Right. I'm not gonna go to McDonald's and expect sushi.
Exactly.
Even if they served it, I would never.
I don't think you should get sushi from McDonald's.
But I also wouldn't want fries from a sushi place. So
it depends, you
know. Well, you might have to.
Well, the Japanese fried, you know,
what is it called?
Tempura, Japanese tempura. What's tempura? What is it called?
Yeah, tempura. Ooh.
Yeah, tempura. So you can get some good fried stuff in the Japanese place. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna end up at the sushi place after this.
We're gonna have sushi and cheesecake.
But yeah, so I think that do you have anything else to add? I also
no.
Go ahead.
I'm satiated.
Yes, satiated.
I'm satisfied.
So what I wanted to do now is to like open up the floor. I know we've been talking a great deal. We're both super talkers, but I want to hear from everybody. I want to hear, like, you know, what is your relationship like with hunger? What is your relationship? Thanks. I'm glad you think this is interesting. What is your relationship like with you know, desire? Do you feel shame when you feel need? Do you have any questions for us and our philosophies with everything? I just want to open the floor. I know there's like a little bit of a lag. So yeah, you guys can start to add some questions in the chat and we can answer them. And I think while you guys are doing that, I just want to kind of go over again what we've discovered today, what you all have discovered today. We came on and we discussed, you know, what is hunger? We defined it as like a craving in intense need, a desire, a longing, and even a physical, emotional signal that that there's a need present, right? Um, desire being the state of need, along a hope for. Then we talked about how to identify needs, how to identify the difference between something maybe being anxiety to something being
authentic hunger.
Exactly, authentic needs. We also talked about how to act on it and unapologetically at that. We talked about what suppression leads to, what overindulgence leads to, and how to prevent that. We also talked about how to satisfy our needs in a healthy way. We talked about clarity, the role of clarity in all of this, which I really can't stress enough is that we're not mind readers, and it's even harder us hard it's I cannot English for a second. I was like, what is a word? But yeah, we're I lost my thought. But yeah, okay, so we have
a comment, yeah.
So I have a love-hate relationship with hunger. I think it's safe to say in all aspects. Yeah, it's not the most pleasant thing because it can come at the weirdest times, and it can come at times where you don't quite know it. I don't know. It's kind of like putting a task on your plate, like giving yourself extra thing on your to-do list, trying to identify what it is that you need. So especially if you're not used to paying attention to yourself in that capacity and devoting time and effort, it can be really inconvenient.
Yeah, but I want to challenge that. I think it is uncomfortable when we either don't feel we can satisfy our hunger, we don't trust we have what it takes, or we in some way feel we're non-deserving to having what we want. So I think once we get to the place that we trust our hunger and we feel that we have the right to have what we want, that discomfort goes away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think once you start practicing, having that healthier relationship with the hunger, I think it'll change a little bit on one end. I think it's important to satisfy this hunger to achieve something when I do have a bad habit of putting myself through hard times. But a hard time with what? Because I'm sensing resistance in that statement. I'm sensing that there is a disconnect between almost like this hesitation, like you're going in but you're not, and then it's that friction there. That's what I'm sensing there.
What it sounds to me is that if you going too hard at it, actually, either feeling guilty because I hear a couple of things. I hear either feeling guilty because you're going for what you want, or feeling that you have to work really hard to get what you want. Like, for example, I'm getting really into fitness, but I'm only doing the things I enjoy, like dancing. I don't think, and this may change tomorrow, but as of right now, you will not see me doing burpees. You will not see me. You will not see me in a CrossFit gym. You will not see me doing a boot camp. But there's people, I know people that feel that if they don't work out at that level, they're not working out. So they want to be fit and they want to move, but they're choosing something that sometimes is painful and too much work to satisfy that. They're going a little too far.
That makes sense. It says, as in putting certain things over satisfying that hunger.
Okay.
See? That's self-betrayal right there.
Yeah, self-betrayal right there.
When you make yourself and your satiety a priority in your life. I'm not saying that there aren't things that come first.
Yeah, sometimes you have to make choices. Like if you're a parent right now,
yeah,
you'd rather be dancing by yourself in a room, but your kid needs you to feed them. You have to do that.
Mhm. But then again, at the same time, if that is your norm, then maybe you need help. Like maybe you need some extra assistance in other things that are taking you away from it, you know. Or maybe there's a way for you to incorporate your other responsibilities into your need. That can be a thing as well.
Yeah, just you're going back, Jamal. I think it's not a bad habit, it's a learned behavior. You have learned that your needs are secondary. I'm looking this way because I'm looking at the questions on my phone. You have learned that your needs are secondary, and that's okay. I learned all my life to not trust my own judgment and to go to external sources for information and validation. So it is a process of deconstructing to learn how to trust yourself and to satisfy your needs, your hunger. Is going to take you deconstructing your habits. And so those are learned behaviors, good, bad, whatever. Maybe they're good because it's exactly what they told you a good person is supposed to do. So, you know, ask yourself, be intentional, ask yourself questions. Why am I going against what I want? Why? Who am I trying to please? What am I trying to do? Why am I practicing self-denial? And little by little, one step at a time, one day at a time, one desire at a time, you could shift and start trusting yourself. You're not gonna be, you know, super confident, self-trusting, always on target person by tomorrow. I think I mentioned I got this hunger for healing through the body when I met Ciera about 3 years ago. It's taken me, I will say, I got into a really grounded, peace level place during quarantine, maybe in the last 3 months. But it has been an ongoing process. And that doesn't mean that I may not lose it tomorrow. I may lose it tomorrow. I need to relearn it again. So it is a constant process. It's a journey, it's a life journey, not a place you get to. It's something that you work on. But you can get better and better and better at listening to yourself and trusting that your intuition is guiding you in the right direction.
So I think this is actually a great place. If there's no more questions, well, one, I definitely wanted to thank my love bug for coming on, or for even bringing this up. I have been thinking about ways that I can serve you guys from a distance. And you know, it's been a little hard not teaching, so I'm really grateful to be able to still be able to come to you guys and give, you know, these tips and skills and hold these kinds of discussions. So yeah, I really thank you for having me and doing this discussion with me and
thank you for agreeing to do this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so make sure that you check out, actually I have your I have all of your info linked here, but please definitely take some time to let everyone know what it is that you do, what, you know, what your offerings are. Yeah, the people want to know.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to embrace the term embodiment coach. I've been calling myself a professional coach, but really my core focus is on the body and connecting to your inner wisdom through the body. So I'm an embodiment coach and I'm a speaker. And I provide services for individuals that want to live their best, individuals and groups that want to live their best life. Help them with strategy planning, all channeled through the body. And my website's beatrizmieses.com. And I'm also here on Facebook, Beatriz Mieses Coach, and Instagram, beatrizmieses.coach. And you can find me on YouTube too.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, if you like hover your mouse over her name in the live description where it says a conversation with I'm stuttering today. A conversation with Beatriz, then you will see her website and her email right there. So it'll pop up. Make sure you like her page. She actually does this. You do this on Wednesdays, correct?
I've been doing some lives on Thursdays. I have one tomorrow. I have my first live tomorrow at 8 p.m. in Spanish. So va a ser completamente en español.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'll be like, I know what she's saying. But yeah, so she brings these wonderful conversations to her page all the time. So please definitely take some time, check out her page, watch some of her other conversations, and check in. And yeah, that is it. You are wonderful. You are an amazing presence.
Thank you so
much. And thank you guys for coming on. As I see some people I know in here, and I see some new people. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for absorbing this information. And if anything jumps out at you over the next week, I really would love for you to start to implement these things, even tonight, if you can. Start to implement just the idea of listening to yourself, checking in with your body, seeing exactly what it wants. Sometimes it'll pop up in the form of pictures and ideas and feelings. Sometimes it'll just be an internal knowing, but you'll know and you'll know.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it pops up later on and you have a thought about it and you want to come back to this video, I will see it. I'll pass it on and we can discuss some things. So yeah, have a good night, you guys. Be good to yourself.
Good night.
Thank you. Night. Let me see if I can. Yep, here we go.